Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to take just a minute to read from each of our witnesses' testimony. And General Richardson, on page 2, you give a pretty bold and direct statement. Today, the PRC has both the capability and intent to eschew international norms, advance its brand of authoritarianism, and amass power and influence at the expense of the existing and emerging democracies in our hemisphere. This is a decisive decade, and our actions or inactions regarding the PRC will have ramifications for decades to come. I agree with you 100%, and I appreciate you being as bold as you are with that statement. General Van Herk, in your statement, on page 4, in May of 2022, the PRC and Russia conducted a combined bomber patrol over the Sea of Japan, coinciding with the Quad Leader Summit in Tokyo. The May 2022 bomber patrol was followed by a second bomber patrol in November of 2022. The cooperation is not confined to the air domain. PRC and Russian naval forces conducted a combined patrol in the fall of 2022. Ms. Dalton, in your testimony, in the NDS, the Secretary directed the Department to act urgently to sustain and strengthen U.S. deterrence with the People's Republic of China as the pacing challenge for the Department in Russia. A stark example of these challenges, pushing along forward, was recently brought to the attention of the American people and the world when the PRC irresponsibly entered our sovereign airspace with a high-altitude balloon. We know with certainty they intended to surveil sensitive U.S. military and critical infrastructure sites. I would have changed one word and put intentionally maybe instead of irresponsibly. But I think your statement is very direct as well. And General Van Herk, I appreciate you giving specific examples of the alliance between China and Russia. Mr. Alfred, I believe it was earlier, or Alfred, said, how do we get America to wake up? Less than 14 days after China flew that balloon across the United States of America, Ford Motor Company, one of America's most iconic brands, announced a multi-billion-dollar partnership with Communist China's CATL for battery technology. Are you aware of this? Are y'all aware of this?
I'm not aware of that, Congressman.
Yeah, okay. I hope you'll look at that. Less than 15 days. Now, I've thought about whether or not this was the right action or not, because I don't like the heavy hand of government, but every now and then it needs to be used. And I'll tell you something. Someone at that Pentagon needs to have enough brass to pick up the phone and call Ford Motor Company and tell them that the DoD will not purchase any vehicle that has that communist Chinese technology in it. Now, I don't have a choice as a consumer. When I go to a Home Depot and I want to buy a power tool, every tool is made in China. The American citizens can either walk out of that store without a power tool or they can buy one made in China. But I'm going to tell you something. The DoD budget's big enough that we can correct this action. We should have started correcting this a long time ago. Now, Vietnam, we lost 58,000 Americans in almost 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. Over 100,000 overdoses this last year in the United States of America. You have all testified that China is indifferent and not willing to help us with this. Is that correct?
Congressman, I did say that. They're turning a blind eye to the precursors.
Turning a blind eye to the deaths that we have. I apologize if the rest of you didn't say it, but it's pretty much the consensus of our intelligence community, our military community, is China could help, but they won't. Corporate America's got to step up to the plate and help us stop this. And I will tell you, it's time for the heavy hand of government to pick up the phone and call Ford Motor Company and say, you developed those batteries with China, and we're not buying any of your battery-powered vehicles through the Department of Defense. With that, I yield the remainder of my time.
We can do that statutorily. I think I'll help you with that. I'll help you with it.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I plan to.
Now we've got